Welcome to the Refuting Calvinism YouTube channel. Today we're going to look at another one of these proof texts that Calvinists like to use to prove the doctrine of original sin. Now obviously there's people who aren't Calvinists who believe in this doctrine of original sin, and I would just encourage you to stop submitting to the foundation of Calvinism and therefore yourself being inconsistent, because if you're going to believe in original sin, you must therefore, logically speaking, be a Calvinist, in my mind anyway. Today we're looking at this passage, probably the third or fourth favorite passage there is for Calvinists to use to prove the false doctrine of original sin. It's Psalm chapter 58 and verse 3. Before I read it, I want to talk about hermeneutics for a second here. Calvinists often pride themselves on sound hermeneutics. They often pride themselves on exegeting the scriptures. In fact, they use the word exegesis so much, almost in like a cult-like, chant-like way. But the fact of the matter is, oftentimes they don't exegete a passage. And, Psalm 51:5 is one of them, and you can watch a video on that right here, right there. I already did a video on that. They don't exegete that passage. Romans chapter 5, verse 12 through 19. They don't exegete that passage. You can find a three-part video series on that right here. That's part one right there. So they always pride themselves, and I've watched a debate with James White on open theism, and I'm not an open theist, by the way. All those of you who are accusing me wrongly. But I watched this debate on open theism between James White and what's the other guy's name? Oh, I can't remember his name. John Sanders. That's who it was. And James White must have said the word exegesis 100 times in that debate. Almost like a mantra, like a broken record. Well, I didn't see any exegesis coming from him in that debate. And this is what happens oftentimes with Calvinists. They'll say this word as if they're doing it, but they're not really doing it. And it really reminds me of Joel Osteen and his little mantra he has at the beginning of every one of his church services. I should use that word loosely. Church services. Joel Osteen said his mantra, "This is my Bible. I believe it." And he goes through. I can't remember exactly what he says. I've watched it his show probably 10 times, but it's really disturbing because he says this mantra, and these people say it with him, and it really tricks him into think that he's really doing it. He really believes what he says. They really believe what they say, but they don't really. They're not really born again. A lot of them. I have a real hard time believing whether Joel Osteen is born again or not, but yet they say these things anyway. So when it comes to exegeting a passage, you must do it properly. And one of the first things you do when you're interpreting a passage properly using hermeneutics is you figure out what kind of literature you're dealing with. And we're going to the Psalms right now. The Psalms are poetic literature. Oftentimes it's exaggeratory. Oftentimes it's symbolic. Oftentimes there's hyperbole. So when you come to the book of Psalms, you have to be really careful if you're going to decide whether to interpret them literally or not. So let's look at Psalm 58:3. And oftentimes the context of the passage that the scripture is found in, and what the rest of the psalm itself is like, and what the psalm is trying to communicate as a whole, can really tell you what each verse is saying, whether it's symbolic or not. So let me just read this one verse, Psalm 58:3, and let's see what it says. "The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies." Now, the Calvinist proposes that this is backing up the doctrine of original sin, that you're born a sinner. Born a sinner. Now, I don't know if Calvinists mean they're a sinner from the moment of conception, if they're a sinner once they get outside the womb, maybe there's some kind of sinful secretion inside the woman's womb that makes them that way. Or maybe there's some kind of sinful secretion within the cervix or the birth canal that makes the baby sinful. But they always assert that you're born a sinner. I don't know what that means, because sin is something you do, and babies haven't sinned yet. But this passage right here is very inconsistent with what they say, being born a sinner. Let's do it again. Let's look at it from the literal perspective here. if we're going to take a literal interpretation of Psalm 58:3, let's see what it literally says. The wicked are estranged from the womb. And now it clarifies how they're estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. So they go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. So if they go astray, it means the moment they were born, they were not astray. They were not sinners yet. But they go astray as soon as they are born. This means they're going astray from something. They're moving away from something. And it says, as soon as they are born, speaking lies. A literal interpretation of this passage is kind of humorous to me. I've had 3 children now, about to have a 4th pretty soon, and I've been there for each birth. And guess what? They can't speak when they're born. They can't speak. Did you know that? Maybe some Calvinists out there who haven't had children aren't aware of that. They don't come out speaking at all. And they may cry soon after they're born, but they don't speak. And they surely can't speak a lie. They don't even know what truth and lie is. They don't even comprehend that. And, my children, my 3 children have, 2 children have lied to me. And I think one of them may understand what a lie is. But the fact of the matter is, they're not held accountable for that because they don't have any understanding of who God is, any mental and intellectual acknowledgement of what the moral law is and who God is and how He's holding them accountable for it. All he knows is his father, his mother tells him these things and he's supposed to obey. That's all he knows. So they're not sinners in that sense. Sinners have to have understanding and intellectual knowledge to be called a sinner. But they go astray. So if we're going to take a literal interpretation here, you're not born a sinner. You go astray after you're born, and it's because you speak a lie. And every baby, if there's going to be a universal declaration now, every baby, as soon as they're born, must speak a lie. If there's been one baby throughout all of history who's been born, and after they've been born, they haven't spoken a lie, then this is not a universal declaration on all people and all babies of all time. It can't possibly be. One other principle of interpretation is simply reality. We know this isn't reality. We can't take everything in the Bible literally. One example I can give you is when Jesus is talking about in the Sermon on the Mount. He says, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. It's better to go to heaven with one hand than go to hell with both your hands. It's a paraphrase, basically what he says there. Now, does Jesus really want you to cut off your hand? Does he literally want you to cut off your hand? Of course not. You still have another hand to do some sinning with. And really, he's also going to say, pluck out your eye. If an eye causes sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. It's better to go to heaven with one eye than to go to hell with both your eyes. But plucking out your eye won't stop you from sinning either. Like, take, for example, the sin of lust. If someone has a problem with lust, they sin with their eye, they pluck one eye out, they take that passage literally, they pluck the eye out, and they say, well, that solves the problem. I'm not going to lust anymore. And then they have the other eye. Now they're straying around at the beach looking at the bikinis. Oh, now I'm lusting with that eye. Pluck the eye. I must, it's better to go to heaven with no eyes and go to hell with one eye. But then they still have the thoughts in their mind. And they're still lusting in their mind and in their hearts. So, literal interpretation is not always the proper interpretation. Reality makes sense, and reality tells me that cutting off a hand, plucking an eye, does not solve the problem of sin that Jesus is talking about. He's simply just saying, he's using hyperbole to say, get all of the sin out of your life, period. And when it comes to Psalm 58:3, what it's probably saying here is that the first sin a child does is lie, but David is obviously being exaggeratory here. I mean, and to prove my point within context here, exegeting the passage, looking what it actually says, the context, let's just read the whole thing. We'll read the whole thing from beginning in. Do you indeed speak righteousness, you silent ones? Do you judge uprightly, you sons of man? No. In your heart you work wickedness. You weigh out the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They must have some poison in them. They're like the death cobra that stops its ear. which will not heed the voice of charmers, charming ever so skillfully. Break their teeth in the mouth, O God. Does he literally want them to break their teeth? Break out the fangs of the young lions, O Lord. More symbolic language there. Let them flow away as waters which run continually. Which when he bends his bow, let his arrows be as if cut in pieces. Let them be like a snail which melts as it goes away. Like a stillborn child of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Before your pots can feel the burning thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, as in his living and burning wrath. The righteous shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. Wow, he's really going to wash his feet in the blood of the wicked? So that men will say, surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely he is God who judges in the earth. So here we have two groups of people being talked about here. The wicked and the righteous. And there's a comparison here. And it says at the end, surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely he is God who judges in the earth. And notice, Psalm 58:3 is not talking about the righteous. It's talking about the wicked. The wicked are estranged from the womb, in contrast to the righteous. So he's talking about the wicked here, comparing two different people. Not talking about righteous people. So if we're really going to be exegeting within the context here, then only the people who are wicked were born sinners. Only the people who are wicked were estranged from the womb, going astray as soon as they were born, speaking lies. The righteous is not talking about them for this issue. So the righteous and the wicked. He's obviously being exaggeratory like he was in the rest of the passage. He's just saying they're so wicked, they must be wicked from, as soon as they're born, speaking lies. That's how wicked they are. And he's exaggerating. He says they're poison. It's like the poison of a serpent. Do the wicked really have poison? Of course not. It's symbolic. Break their teeth in their mouth, oh God. Is that what he really wants them to do? Is he really going to wash his feet in the blood of the wicked? Of course not. So Psalm 58:3 is not going to be a good passage to back up the Calvinistic doctrine of original sin. It doesn't work. If you interpret it literally, they go astray as soon as they're born, speaking lies. If you interpret it figuratively, David's simply exaggerating of how wicked the wicked are. And then he contrasts it with the righteous, who are different in his eyes because they're living righteously. So he isn't even talking about them. So he would, according to this context, he would exclude the righteous from being born wicked and being estranged from the womb and going astray as soon as they're born, speaking lies. But notice it doesn't say here in Psalm 58:3, it mentions nothing about Adam and Eve. It mentions nothing about the fall of mankind. It mentions nothing about all people of all times, universally, every single baby. It's simply talking about the wicked who are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they're born, speaking lies. But once again, it can't be literally. Babies don't speak when they're born. They definitely don't speak lies when they're born. And it wouldn't back up original sin anyway, because it's saying they go astray as soon as they're born. So it's figurative. It's talking about the wicked being so wicked, they must be wicked as soon as they're born. They must, that's how wicked they are. So hopefully, if you can see, if you interpret it properly with sound hermeneutics, looking at the context of the passage and what kind of literature it is, you'll see it does not back up original sin at all. Well, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you were encouraged by it and you were edified by it, and hopefully you have an open heart when you're watching this video. I look forward to interacting with you on this, and please hold your comments to this scripture alone. If you have other comments on other scriptures, you need to look through my video to see if I've done a video on that scripture yet, and you can comment on that video instead. Until next time, this is the Refuting Calvinism YouTube channel, and God bless you.